And we begin tonight with the model for where America is heading. I'm talking about Hungary, the small Central European nation that is a favorite of right-wing politicians, former Fox hosts, and of course, Donald Trump himself, because of one man, Hungary's authoritarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He's been eroding Hungarian democracy for more than a decade now. A former member of the Hungarian parliament, Gabor Schneering, writes in Politico, Trump's goal this time is to remake the American government to enhance his power. He isn't the first modern right-wing populist to attempt this. He is following a playbook pioneered by Viktor Orban. Orban came to power in 2010, and some of his first acts were to take aim at the independence of Hungary's judiciary and news media, rewriting the constitution to force senior judges to retire, and setting up a new court system overseen directly by his government, and consolidating control over the media. His government and its allies took control of 90% of media outlets, elevating Orban's propaganda. Orban and his party, Fidesz, have also tightened his grip over Hungary's electoral system, changing laws to rig the system in his favor and keep him in power in perpetuity. And much like the American right, Orban has gone out of his way to stoke division by stoking fear about racial diversity and demonizing immigrants. He's even embraced the far-right concept of replacement theory, warning against race mixing in Europe. Orban has blocked asylum seekers from entering Hungary and referred to Middle Eastern refugees as Muslim invaders. In fact, Orban has made it a point of escalating the culture wars in Hungary in consolidating his power. He's offered tax breaks and subsidies to boost the Hungarian birth rate for a future without immigration. He's also tightened abortion laws, passing a fetal heartbeat law like the ones that have banned abortion across much of our own country. Orban and his party have also passed laws prioritizing patriotic education, seized control of Hungary's state universities, and passed laws banning LGBTQ content in schools and children's television. Sound familiar? Orban has also openly cultivated a relationship with the U.S. Republican Party. He's hosted CPAC events in Budapest and was the keynote speaker at a CPAC conference in Texas 2 years ago. It's an authoritarian love fest that goes both ways. Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, who even hosted a week of shows from Hungary before he got fired from Fox, and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance are just a few on the American right who have sung Orban's praises.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary.
He thinks families are more important than banks. He believes countries need borders. For saying these things out loud, Orban has been vilified.
I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. On the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that he's made some smart decisions there that we could learn from in the United States.
Well, the reality is that Viktor Orban's Hungary is very much a cautionary tale for Americans as we face Donald Trump in the White House a second time. For how we can survive and resist our own modern-day autocrat, take it from someone who lived through Viktor Orban's power grab, the aforementioned former Hungarian politician, Gabor Schering, who writes, Hungary's key lesson is you don't protect democracy by talking about democracy. You protect democracy by protecting people. Only a democracy that works for the people is sustainable. And Gabor Schering joins me now. Mr. Schering, thank you so much for being here. I want to start by asking you, what was Viktor Orban's sales pitch when he first ran for the leadership in that country in 2010?
Thank you very much for having me. So in 2010, before Orban was re-elected back to power, he basically rallied on the massive disillusionment that people felt with the previous governing coalition, which was a left liberal governing coalition, stagnating real wages, escalating income inequalities, frustration with banks. That was just the post-financial crisis period. So that, and also a brewing kind of racial hostility, especially throughout rural Hungary, where Viktor Orbán was in competition with an even more radical far-right party compared to Fidesz, to capitalize and channel that kind of rural anger. So these were the most important issues that catapulted back him to power. He was a prime minister before, between 98 and 2002. And when he lost the election back then, he drew the conclusion that should he get reelected once again, which he did in 2010, he's going to be much more aggressive in his attempt to stay in power. And in fact, he has managed to do that. He's been in power ever since 2010, doing basically everything to make the life of the opposition as hard as possible to get rid of him.